Okay, so we're ready to start looking at Module 7. Module 7 is not in our textbook. This is going to be a subject that we're doing outside of it. And Module 7 is all about what we call configurations, okay? So if we look at our learning plan here, Module 7 is looking at configurations. I'm going to be doing a full demo on it, and then there's handouts that we're going to be working from as far as the models that we're going to be working with. We are going to have a practice problems, which is this exercise 1. Okay, it's a PDF. I have it also underneath my camera that we're going to be working through. We're going to be creating a model, but then we're going to be creating some additional versions or what we call configurations that are slightly different, but the base model is the same. Okay, so I want to show you how to do that. And then once we get through that first example, or that first exercise, then our assignment is going to be some additional similar exercises to that to practice configurations. So if we go back to our module, oops, went a little too far. We go back to our module 7. That's the learning plan. I'll populate with the session recordings that we have this evening. And then you'll notice here that we have the practice problem assignment. And again, that's going to be the first example, or the first exercise that we go through here in class together. And then if we look at assignment 7, there are going to be 3 additional exercises. So exercise 1 is going to be our practice problems. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 4 models with configurations are going to be your assignment. And each one of these PDFs are going to be the corresponding, if you would, handout for that particular model. Okay, so let's start looking at what we have. So I'm going to go underneath my camera, and I want to show you the first problem we're going to look at. This is exercise number 1. This is the PDF that we find in the learning plan that we were looking at. And this is going to be our practice problem. So it's the first one that we're going to go through in its entirety. What we have here is we have a base model. Okay, so we have our top, front, and our right side view here. And then there's a little isometric that we see. And we're given the dimensions of that full model. We are going to start by drawing that model. Okay, so we're going to go through that process. And then you're going to notice a couple things here. You're going to notice on the right-hand side, there's 2 other versions of this part. So the first one is the exact same part, except the overall width is longer. The original overall width is 6.5 inches, and the new width is going to be 8.5. Okay, so everything else is the same. So we're going to create what we call a new configuration or a new version of this part inside the same model. Okay, so rather than creating a whole new model and redrawing the whole thing, we're going to use this base default model to then make that change. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to have a second version or a second configuration that we're going to do, which is going to still utilize that 8.5 inch wide. So it's longer, but now these, I don't know what we're going to call them. The bosses are going to get taller. Okay, so 3 parts really that are going to be housed in one model. Okay, so like I said, we're going to start here. Now there's a couple notes here. It says the part is symmetrical. So we're going to notice that there's a symmetrical down the middle, vertically and horizontally. So to create this base plate, we are going to use the center rectangle, and the center is going to be at our origin. Okay. It says create the model using the hole wizard and the feature mirror options. So we'll go through that because we're going to mirror then one of these bosses over here with the hole to the other side about one of the principal planes. And then we're going to create 2 additional configurations, which are over here on the right-hand side. Okay. So this is a nice, efficient way. So many times we have families of parts that are similar to this. So we have like a base part that's this, but then we all of a sudden make a different size of that particular part. And now all of a sudden, why redraw the whole thing when all we have to do is change one dimension and it can still be in that same model. Okay, so again, variations or configurations are what we're going to be looking at. So I already opened up SolidWorks, and as we look at this part, this is in English units. So if I go down to the lower right-hand corner, I'm in my IPS inch, pound, seconds. So you can open up your template for your ANSI inch increments. So the first thing I'm going to do as we go over here, we're going to, as I said, we're going to create that center rectangle for the base plate as a solid. Now, what's important when you're working with configurations is you want to kind of devise how you're going to do this based on the variables that are going to change. So as I said here, we're going to use that center rectangle, but we're going to use it for a couple of reasons. Number one, so we can mirror about that, what's going to end up being our right plane. But secondly, when we look over here on the right-hand side at our first configuration where we change the length and it gets longer, it still is going to be evenly distributed on either side. So notice that our hole remains in the middle of the model, and then it just gets longer on either side. So having this as a center rectangle, then we'll do exactly that. It'll elongate it and split the difference on either side, okay? Additionally, this is where it becomes important that, especially as you look at configurations, you want to create your models so that I'm going to call it feature based. So I'm going to create first my base plate as a solid, and then I'm going to add the hole in the middle as a separate feature. And then I'm going to add the boss with the boss solid, sorry. And then I'm going to be adding the tapped hole in separately. We're going to find that as we do configurations, if we don't do that, some ways of configuring this won't be available to us unless we separate out those features. So we've been kind of practicing that as we've gone along, but now here's a practical application where it's going to be important to pull those features out separately so they're easier to work with configurations. Okay. All right. So we're going to first do our default model and we're going to create that base plate. So I'm going to go up to extrude boss base. I'm going to click on the top plane and I'm going to use my center rectangle. If you don't already have it on the top, you want to arrow down, and I'm going to go right to the center here and I'm going to go something like that. Okay. I'm going to smart dimension, and this is going to be 6.5, and I notice I'm in my ISO. I don't know why. I'm going to change that in just a second, and 5 here. I don't know if when I went in, I didn't click the right template, but I'm going to go to my documents and I am in ANSI. I really don't want to do this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a quick close. I'm not going to save. I'm going to reopen. For some reason, I guess maybe when I did my initial open, maybe I didn't open it properly. We'll just start back over. So I'm going to do an extrude boss base, top, center rectangle. Come on. Center rectangle. There we go. There. Now they're coming in okay. So 6.5 and 5. Okay. Then I'm going to exit that sketch, extrude boss base, and the thickness for this one is going to be 0.375. Okay. And I find that over here in our right side view. So 0.375 is our thickness. Okay. Now I'm going to add that center hole in. The center hole is 1.5 inches in diameter. So go back over here. Oh, before I do, we're gonna continue to rename those features. So this is going to be, I'm going to call it the base plate. Now I'm going to do it under an extrude cut. And the reason I'm going to do that is because the standard inch increments for the hole wizard are going to be up to 1 inch. Those are like the standard drill sizes. So I'm just going to put it in as an extrude cut on that surface. And I'm going to put it right at the origin there, right in the center. Smart dimension, 1.5. And because it's in the center, it knows exactly where it's at. So it's going to be fully defined. If you have your origin in the bottom, corner or someplace else, then you're going to have to add dimensions to that center. All right. Now I'm going to exit. And we want to make sure that this is going to be a through all. Okay. Through all. So that if that ever changes thickness wise, it'll still be a hole. So I'm going to rename this. Just going to call it center hole. Now, again, these names just need to be updated from the generic extrude cuts and extrude bosses so that they mean something and they're easier to navigate as you, want to change things. Now's a good time. I put a couple of features in there. I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to go to module 7, and this is going to be exercise 1. And I'm going to call it _2 just because I've drawn it a couple times. And now I'm going to add one of my little bosses here. Okay. I'm going to do the one on the right-hand side. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in so I can see all those dimensions. Okay. So I'm going to draw a corner rectangle starting in this corner right here and going down, and it's going to be a 2 by 2. And then we're going to add this radius in as a fillet in the sketch. So I'm going to go back to SolidWorks, and I'm going to do an extrude boss face on this face. I'm going to do a corner rectangle, not a center rectangle, corner rectangle. I'm going to start in that upper left-hand corner, just come down about there. Okay. And now I'm going to smart dimension 2 and 2. Okay. And then I'm going to add a fillet, a sketch fillet here. You could do a fillet on the outside. It's really one or another. I'm going to do it here. All right. And it's going to be a radius of 1. And my entities are going to be this line and that line. And I've got a preview there that looks good. And I'm going to say, okay, and okay. And I should be fully defined, and I am. I'm going to exit. And now I'm going to extrude this a height of 2.5, which is the dimension given to us. It'll be a blind 2.5 going up. Okay. And we will call this corner boss. There we go. Yeah. We'll do a file save. File save. So I've got this one in place right here. The next thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to add the tapped hole here, the tapped hole call out is over here. I'm going to put it in right away, because that way when I mirror, I can mirror them both at the same time. Okay. And it saves me a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the tapped hole in here. I'm going to put it in it with the hole wizard. So I'm going to click on the hole wizard. I am going to click tapped hole or straight tap. Make sure that the type is a tapped hole. And we need this to be in ANSI inch. So it's going to be the top one. And when we look at our note here on this drawing, this is another way that we see thread callouts. It's kind of like I'm gonna say it's an older way of calling it out. What they're doing here is they're calling out the tap drill size. So the top line right here is the tap drill. Okay. This is the actual thread call out. And then they're putting in a countersink on the near side. All right. And we can do this all right in SolidWorks. Normally, the standard call out does not require the tap drill size anymore, because that's standard. If you say that it's a 1/20 UNF, which is a unified national fine thread call out, the tap drill that goes with it is 0.43 or 0.453. Okay. So you don't have to put it as part of the call out for the thread. Okay. The reason being is we try to eliminate as much of that as possible. Number one, to clean up the drawing. Number two, in case this is put in incorrectly, then people are going to wonder, like, is it the right tap drill size, or how are you going to get that with, you know what I mean? So that's why we try to keep it just to the thread call out, and the person making it then has to make that good decision and know what the correct tap drill size is. Okay. And there's lots of charts and ways that you can do that. So, so that's there, but just know that that's not going to play into how we specify it over here. We're going to find that that's exactly, it's going to automatically come up. So our whole specification is going to be, we're going to go down to the half 20. Okay, half 20. And then the next thing is this is going to be the end condition, blind. And we want to specify first the tap drill. That's the drill size that we see here. This is the tap drill. And that is going to be 1.25 as called out in the top there. And then down below here, our thread is going to be 1. Okay. Now it turns yellow just because it's not the standard. That's okay. All right. It's not a big deal. It'll still do it for us. Your drill always has to be longer than your thread. Okay. And so it's just identifying that, hey, you're not doing the normal standard, but that's okay. It'll still do it. Okay. So now we're ready to position it. So we're going to go over to position. Do not hit 3D sketch. You're going to click on the surface that we're going to apply this, which is going to be the top of our boss. And now you're going to notice that on our drawing, it has this note here. And it says that the part is symmetrical and the tapped holes are concentric to the radius. So they share the same radius as that fillet. So if I go back over here, when we place this, we want to activate that fillet so we can see the center, so that now we can click on that center and it's going to grab the center for us. If you don't do that, then you just have to add a relation to be concentric from that radius to the center of the hole. Okay. But you're going to notice down here, it says fully defined because we activated it. So we can just hit OK. And now you've got your tap in place. You want to expand out really each one of these, right, for when you get your screenshot. So I can see all of your sketches are fully defined. And you can see here that we are. Again, if you're not fully defined, then what you want to do is you want to add a relation for the center of that radius or that fillet to have the same center as our tapped hole. Okay, so not a bad time to do a quick save. And now we have both of those elements in place so that when we look over here, we are ready now to do our single mirror to do both of those parts, the boss and the tap drill. So now I'm going to go to, without having anything selected, I'm going to go on my features tab to the mirror option. Okay. And it's going to ask me, what is the mirror face or the plane that we want to go about? Now, since we put our origin in the center of the part, we're going to expand out our part on our screen here, and we're going to just hover over each one of these planes. These are available for us to mirror over. So in order for this to mirror over to the right side, we're going to click this right plane, which is going through the center of the part, as you can see there. And now we're going to use that to mirror about. We're not going to do a secondary, but we're going to click in features to mirror. With our part expanded here on the screen, we are going to mirror the corner boss. So you're gonna select that and the half 20 tapped hole, both of those. And that's all that we need to add here. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK. And then now we have it in place. I'm just going to do a file save. Okay, now as we look, that is our base part. We've put in all of the features to create this part right here. Okay. Now what we need to do is we're going to now create two configurations. One is going to be configuration 1A and the other is going to be configuration 1B. 1A is going to change one dimension and it's going to change the length of this part to 8.5 from 6.5. So to do that, okay, we have our base part here and up on the top right now, we have always been working out of the part design tree. We're going to go over 2 places to the right and we're going to go to configuration manager. We're going to click on that. And what we have here is we have the name of our part and then we have the default configuration. It's the base. All right. It's like the first one. All of our parts, if we go back and we look at any parts that we've created, they all have this one default configuration. okay? But we can make multiples. So to add a configuration, we're gonna left click on our part and we're gonna right click and we're gonna go to add configuration. So you're gonna select it with your left click, you're gonna right click, add configuration. And now it's gonna ask us for the configuration name. We're gonna call this config 1A, okay? Config 1A or configuration if you want. And then you can put a description in here. This is for your purposes only. So we're gonna make it longer and that's it. We're gonna make it longer. So we're gonna click OK. All right. Now you're gonna notice that highlighted or what's dark is config 1A and what's like light and grayed out is the default. So now our active model is the configuration 1A. So with that, with the green check mark in front, we're going to go back to our part. Okay. Now, what we want to change is going to be the length of our base plate. And that is found in the sketch of our base plate. So expand out your base plate sketch if you need to. And now we're going to click on that sketch and we're going to edit this sketch. Now, we're going to go up and we are going to change this 6.5 dimension, but do not hit enter after you put 8.5 in, okay? We're going to double click. We're going to change it to 8.5. Do not click the green check mark. Do not click enter yet. You're going to go over to the right and we're going to click on that little symbol, and that's the symbol for configurations. And we want this on this configuration only. So you're just gonna click this configuration. And then now we're gonna click OK. If we don't do that, it's gonna change it for the default as well. And we don't want to. We want the default to say 6.5, and we want our new one to be 8.5. So we were telling it that dimension is for this configuration only. Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna hit OK here. And I'm going to exit my sketch and notice what happened to my model. It got longer. Okay. Now I'm going to do a file, save. And we're going to go back to our configuration manager. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to double click on the default and it should get shorter, and then double click on the configuration 1.8 and it should get longer. Okay. And again, the whole key on that one was to change that dimension for that configuration only. That 8.5 was for that configuration only. If you didn't, then these would be both the same size. Okay. All right. Let's do one more configuration on here. So if we go back underneath here, you're going to notice that we have configuration 1B. And we want to now keep it the 8.5 inches long. So notice that that's remaining the same. And then we are going to make our boss, we're gonna change it from 2.5 to 3.9 high. Okay, 3.9 high. So this is gonna be the new configuration here. So now I'm gonna go back to SolidWorks, okay? And we are going to left click, right click, add configuration. Our configuration name is gonna be config 1B. And this time, we're going to make the corner boss taller. Again, that's only for your eyes only. We're going to click OK.
What was the configuration? Was it add the right configuration?
So it's left click, right click. Yep. And then add configuration. And we're doing config 1B. So with config 1B selected, right now its base is going to be what the 1A was. All right. And we're leaving that 8.5. We're not changing that. So that's going to remain the same. We're going to go back to the part. And to change that height, that is going to be the corner boss. Okay. But it's not in the sketch. It's going to be actually in the feature this time. So we're going to click the feature. We're going to edit the feature. And now you're going to notice that right here for our blind distance, this is going to go to 3.9. Okay. And then we can hit enter. Now, before we click OK, we have to assign it to this configuration. So if we go down here at the bottom, we want to click this configuration only, not all configurations, this configuration. The default is all configurations. We want to do just this one. Okay. And once we have that, we're going to say, okay. And now they got taller. Now we're going to do a file save. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't point out earlier, but you know what configuration you're in when you're on that feature manager. If in parentheses here, notice it says config 1B, okay? It'll be default or config 1A. So now I'm gonna go back to my configuration manager and I'm gonna make sure that I have these all a little bit different. I'm gonna go back to my default, double click my default. It should be shorter and shorter in both directions. I'm gonna go to 1A, it's just gonna get longer. And then 1B, I get taller. Okay, then you know you did it right. Now, we have these three configurations. Katie. What do you mean? For the description? Remember, that's just for your, yeah, for this one, it's going to remain 8.5 long and taller. So my default is going to be 6.5 wide, 2.5 tall. My 1A is going to be 8.5 wide, 2.5 tall. And my 1B is going to be the 8.5 wide and the 3.9 tall. Okay, now how are we going to identify these for handing them in, right? So what I want you to do is do an F here. You are going to do your default and you're going to go back to your part. You're going to grab this and make it closer. You're going to expand out each one of your features here so that I can see everything is fully defined. And you're going to take a screenshot of this one, okay, of your default. And I'll be able to know it's your default because the default is right here in the name on the feature control, on the feature design tree or the part design tree. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your configuration manager and you're going to go to 1A. You're going to double click on 1A to activate it. Go back to the part manager, expand out each one of these again, okay? And you're going to take your screenshot of this one so I can see it's longer, right? And then you're going to go back to the configuration manager, 1B, okay? And then you're going to do that very same thing, expand out each one of these like we normally do, take your screenshot. So 3 screenshots of the model. You're not making a drawing for this, for any of these. 3 screenshots, 1 for each of the configurations, the default, the 1A, the 1B. And you're going to upload those then to the module 1 practice problems for this. So if we go back to Canvas and we go down to module 7, this is where you're going to upload your practice problems, okay? So step number 2 here, it says submit a PDF, JPEG, or whatever you want. We have lots of options and everybody kind of does their own thing, but you want it for each of the 3 configurations. So you need 3 screen snips total. Default, 1A, 1B. Okay. Any questions on exercise 1, which is our module 7 practice problems? Okay. If not, then I'll stop the recording here and we'll be back with more.